I was asking about becoming a deliberate creator, manifesting, and how I've been manifesting all over the place, and been intuitively led to make a change and a move in our life, and we found the perfect home, and we've listened, and we followed our bliss, and the only thing that hasn't happened now is the sale of our home. Everything else has happened so easily, except we can't seem to sell our house, which, now we've firmed up on this other place, and it's like, okay, we have to sell by this time, and we're trying to let go and just visualize it's being sold, and I guess I just want to know what's the resistance here, what's going on, because everything else around us has happened so easily.
Well, did you hear us earlier today when we were talking about the emotional journey?
Yes.
And can you feel how this is a really good example of feeling the difference between the usual journey you take, which is we have to find the right person to sell the right house or to buy our house so that we can sell this house so that everything will fall into place. In other words, it's easy to make it a quantifiable journey provided everybody does the right thing at the right time.
Right.
But you can't always control, or it seems, all of those kinds of circumstances. And can you feel the difference in making it that sort of physical journey where all of these things have to fall into place, and making it an emotional journey where right now you could make yourself feel better about that? Mm-hmm. And the thing that we so much want you to hear is that when you come to a place that you do feel better about it, then things will fall into place. It really is that simple.
Well, I find I sort of flip from everything's going to be great, I know we're going to sell our farm, everything's going to fall into place, to, oh my God, but what if we don't sell by the time we have to close on this other place? And so I kind of flip back and forth.
But what we want you to hear is you're not really flipping that far.
Okay.
That's kind of like quantum leaping. And if you were really feeling as comfortable about it as you say you are, then there would be enough movement, or you would at least feel ease within it. So we have some questions for you.
Yes.
Do things usually work out well for you?
Yes.
And if this house didn't sell, your house didn't sell right away, and therefore you were unable to make the move into the new house, would it be that dramatic? In other words, if your house doesn't sell, would you not be able to make the move?
Well, seeing as we've firmed up on the other house, we've committed to buying that house.
So one way or another, you're moving into that house. In other words,
we're not sure how we'd do it, though, if we didn't sell.
So the worst case scenario is you would have two houses, one of which you cannot really afford.
Right. Yes.
So how many houses do you want to live in?
One.
And is there a possibility of anybody else living in the other house?
I suppose.
So
it's a farm. It's a 50-acre horse farm. So it's, it has to be it has to be a person wanting horses and that kind of.
So is it conceivable that someone could want to rent it from you or want to lease it from you?
Sure.
And in other words, is it possible that has it been a viable source of income?
It would
Does it have the potential of being a viable source of income?
Absolutely.
And had you ever looked at it in terms of being a viable source of income for yourself?
Yes, we did, and we have been running it as a business for 4 years, but we've decided that we're just going to move. We're moving on to something else.
And what you're moving on to is
also a horse farm, but it's smaller. It's more. It's more doing what we want to do rather than boarding and training and coaching. It's just training and coaching what makes money rather than what doesn't make money.
So this is all a little more complicated than at first you let on, isn't it? In other words,
what I really feel is like I feel like as I've become a better and better deliberate creator in my life, is the next desire comes up, and it's like, oh yeah, and I expect that it'll happen and everything, and it's like, wow, there's all these roadblocks, or there's all these things happening. Am I being challenged here? Here's
the thing that we want you to hear. the roadblocks, no one is challenging you. You are not being tested in any way. In other words, no one's saying, well, she thinks she's really a good deliberate creator. Let's find out if she can really take this. Let's find out if she can really take this. Let's test her ability for positive attitude. And there's nothing like that happening. But what is happening is the way you feel really, it does have everything to do with the way things unfold. So as it turns out, everything happens in perfect order. And when something comes to you, it is always just the next logical step. Right. So when you found this other property and you made an offer on it and you looked at the facilities and all of that, the reason that it felt so right to you is because all of it, as you looked at it and as you felt it, felt like the next logical step. In other words, all of that. So the universe yielded that to you and everything sort of opened for you. Even the finding of it was the universe yielding to you. And the terms that were offered was the universe yielding to you. In other words, so much. Now, as it doesn't look like the universe is yielding to you relative to the sale of your property, it's not because something outside of you is out of whack. It is because something within you relative to the property is not quite lined up. Right. Sometimes it is because it's something that you plan to do with it that you never quite got done. Or, in other words, sometimes people just don't feel finished with something. Sometimes it is because you are so ready to move on to the next, and in making comparisons, this will be so much better than this, this will be so much better than this will be so much better than this, that you're keeping the drumbeat of that alive within you, which is causing contradiction within you. Okay. We were visiting with someone one time, not a long time ago, and this person had his house on the market for a very, very, very long time. And we said, tell us about the house. Why is it that you are selling the house? And he began to describe the house as outdated and not big enough, and he felt rather critical about it. And we said, you're sort of sending a broadcast to the universe that is saying, come and buy from me this thing I no longer want. Right. And so then we encouraged him to remember how they felt when the family first found the house, and remember what it felt like to be reaching into it. In other words, this is what we're reaching for rather than what we're leaving behind. And as he found those positive feelings, remembering how it was just right and they had no furniture, and every weekend they'd go buy another plant and bring it and the family would plant it together, it reactivated within him those feelings of well-being around that place. But even more importantly, it took him out of the vibration of angst and put him into the vibration of appreciation, which was the vibration that helped to align it. So what we hear from you, even though you're not actually saying it with your words, and you're not so different than almost anybody else on something like this, is what you really are saying is, I would feel such relief if we would get an offer on this property. And and when that does happen, we're going to feel such relief. And what we're saying to you here today, you have to conjure your own relief. Right. You just have to take yourself on mental escapades that give you the feeling of relief even before somebody gives you a reason to, what you might say, legitimately have those feelings of relief. And those feelings of relief are indications that the logjam is broken loose, and then all kinds of things will come forth for you. You're not looking for a lot of people to look at this property. It's a small percentage of the population that even wants property like this. And we say that to you not because we want to add to your fears about it. We say it to you because we want you to understand that the universe understands that. The universe knows that this property is for sale. Think about it. The universe and law of attraction is like the best real estate agent in the sky. In other words, knowing everything about the property, knowing everything about what other people are looking for, and having the ability to match people up with that. And it doesn't matter where they live on the planet, Source Energy has the ability to match people up with it. It's not people out there, it's not a prospective buyer that's not yet matched up with your property. It's you that's not yet matched up with the vibration of releasing it, you see. Not because you don't want to release it, but because you're so worried that someone won't come, that you're more of a vibrational match to that than you are to the smooth flow. So the way you talk yourself into this emotional journey is by saying things like, things work out for us, they just do. And we always shine in a crisis. And quite often we get right up to something before it breaks loose because we jump, and this is true of you, we jump a little beyond our comfort zone of alignment when we ask for things.
Yes.
That's all that's happened. In other words, your desire, you jumped a little further than you could comfortably do or than you really felt. And so you're sort of demanding of the universe that it yield to you something you're not quite ready for. And now it's time for you to get up to speed with your own desire.
You brought this to me. I took the risk.
Well, that isn't exactly what we meant. What we meant was, although if it feels that good like that, then we can leave it that way. But here's what we meant. The way you feel always is about the vibrational distance between what your dominant vibration about something is and your desire. Mm-hmm. That's what everything that you feel is. And when we say you really want to feel good, think about what that means in the broadest context. It means what you really want is to always manage the vibration of your desire and the vibration of your belief. In other words, you want just enough that it calls you forward, but not so much that you don't believe it.
Right.
In other words, so when we say you always want to feel good or feeling joy is who you are, we're really talking about the management of one's own vibration, aren't we? Mm-hmm. So when you want something, here's a good way of looking at it. One day, an adult daughter was talking to her mother about purchasing some property that she thought she would like to make into a bed and breakfast. And she said to her mother, the idea of this is so exciting. If we could make this happen, it would make up for all of the things in my life that didn't turn out the way they should have. She said, this is so good. It would make up for everything. And we said, then it's not on the brink of unfolding because it doesn't feel like the next logical step. When something feels almost more exciting than you can stand, there's still something out of alignment. And so your work really is to bring yourself into alignment so that this is just a perfectly normal thing. And so that's the way we would talk to ourselves if we were standing in your physical shoes. We found this. It looked just right. The universe yielded it to us. It's logical that this would work really well for us. Everything always works out right for us eventually, and there's no reason that it can't do it sooner rather than later. And now we found something that's really ringing our bells, and so we know we're summoning a lot of energy, and so things are really working on our behalf, and now all we have to do is just relax and trust that the right people at the right time or that the right circumstances will come into place. Sometimes people find that just by getting very determined about something, it's going to work one way or another. That can really help you. In other words, a determination can line up energy. When you say things like, whatever will be, and that strikes fear, and then you say, we're going to make this happen, and that feels more secure, then you know which of those two attitudes feels the best for you. Right. So, does it feel to you that the set point on this, the emotional set point, meaning the place you've been vibrating the most often, feels like fear, discouragement, or are those words too strong?
A little bit of fear, more frustration. Fear, frustration, I guess. But then there's an overwhelming feeling sometimes that, it's going to be okay. But then, oh my God, what if it isn't?
Well, it's always the lower vibrations that you're wanting to adjust upward. In other words, so your range is somewhere between being really excited and worrying that it won't work out. So rather than fear, maybe worry is a better, it's a softer vibration. Okay. It's higher on the emotional scale, certainly. Right. So from your place of worry, now talk to us with one intent only. Don't talk to us because you're trying to sell your property. Talk to us because you're trying to make yourself feel better about selling your property, or feel better about not selling it yet. In other words, the whole work here is to make yourself feel better, because when you consistently achieve feeling better, the log jam is broken and the manifestation has to come. Right. That's as clear as we can ever say it. Yeah. It's about making yourself feel better as you focus upon a specific issue or subject. So do the work here, and you'll feel whether you're moving this way or this way as you make statements. And don't be afraid, because so what if you make a statement that takes you that way? All you have to do is make another statement that takes you that way. In other words, just jab around with the intention of moving up.
Well, everything's happened so easily, the way we were, led out west, and this new property, without even looking, came to us, and it just felt so good. And all
right, now that's all fine. A little off the topic, though.
Okay. So. And everything does always work out. And
now that's a general statement that feels pretty good. Yeah. Now try to get a little more specific and still feel good.
I know there's the right person out there for this. I mean, this is a beautiful property that we have. It's been my dream, and I built it, and I'm ready to let it go to the next person who's ready to love it as much as I have, and I know that person's out there. I know they're out there.
Now that feels. It sounds good. How does that feel to you? Are those statements torturing you or soothing you?